Welcome to the Big MJ Debate, the show that debates the most exciting, divisive, controversial, and hilarious debates within the Michael Jackson fan community. I'm Pez Jax, and I'm ecstatic to have today's discussion with my two co-hosts. Like every Motown era fan, she's hiding in the closet, jigging to the sound of the washing machine. It's Cheryl McLachlan.
Hi.
And fresh from another Twitter war, leaving blood on the dance floor as he goes, it's Ilya Mazzani.
Hi.
Today, we're exploring the fundamentals of what makes a Michael Jackson fan, how we became fans, if there's any do's and don'ts that fans should adhere to, and also the frankly bizarre notion of fake fan. So, quite a lot to discuss today. Let's discuss, how did you guys become fans of Michael?
Well, I remember like hearing Michael since I can recall and I can remember since I was a kid. So because of my sister, but then she moved to Ireland, so that when I was like 4 or 5, and I kind of forgot about MJ for like a couple of years. And one day I was sitting in my friend's lounge, TV was on a music channel, and Earth Song comes on. And the rest is history. It literally just clicked, and I was like, "Who is this man?"
Did you have access to Michael because you grew up in Georgia, right? So, what was Michael like? Was he popular in Georgia? Did you have much access to him?
No, he was not popular. What I remember when I used to like voice that I liked Michael, everyone was like, "What year is this?" So yeah, it was literally always that. And only access I had is, I remember that my sister had left a tape that said Michael Jackson. It wasn't a real one, it was history. It was a bootlegged one, and yeah, that's all I had for like a year, and then I forced my parents to buy me another.
And didn't you go on Georgia's Got Talent as Michael?
Stop it. Listen, we're not meant to. No.
You mean those fan edits weren't real?
That was it was literally an accident. I was seen by some reporter that was making a documentary about MJ, and they're like, "Oh my God, please come to our show." And then after that show, I never auditioned for Georgia's Got Talent. It was literally like, would you do this? You can go straight to, and they were like, "We guarantee you semifinals." So I just went for it.
You went on it with your Madison Square Garden Invincible era haircut, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Unintentionally, actually. That was not intentional, can I just say? And I know it made it worse when I wore a red shirt instead of white one.
Listen, if you want to look like a thatched cottage, don't let anybody take that away from you.
Fake fan.
Shah, what about you? How did you become a fan?
So, because my mum and my grandma were such huge fans, Michael was always kind of present in my life. I think my earliest memory of Michael, now I was like 6 years old when this happened, but my earliest memory of him is when I saw him on the news walking out the courthouse in the white suit. Now, I don't remember I didn't realise what it was, but I could remember all my family talking about it. Then when the King of Pop album came out, was that 2008? I want to say it was 2008.
Yeah,
it was burned to death, scratched, played constantly in my mum's car, and that was really when I really got into Michael. I remember the first time she was like, "Oh, listen to this song," and it was Black or White. We were in the car, we were stopped at red traffic lights, and it was that Black or White intro when he bangs on the door. And I thought someone was banging on the car door. And I was like, "Oh!" But that was my first like real, "Oh wow, I love this" fan moment. So the King of Pop album was really how I properly got into Michael. And I think by that time I was about 10, so I was old enough to understand how much I loved the music.
How about you?
Wow. My mom obviously was into Michael, and we're going back to the like late 80s, early 90s now. But my mum was a fan, and Michael was always kind of present in our house. So we'd go out in the car, Michael was on in the car, Michael was on at home. And sort of some of my earliest memories of Michael was like that, because it was so long ago, it was thinking like 1990, just snapshots in my mind of like memories that I have. So like one that I always remember is seeing Michael, Jennifer, and the other guy on the pyramid stage in Moonwalker, where they're doing Come Together. That was one of my earliest memories of Michael, just that clip. I remember being at my grandparents' house. I must have been about 4. I was at my grandparents' house, and we had to rush home because somebody was doing an MJ impersonation on Stars in Their Eyes. And so so we needed to get home. And I just remember coming home with a suitcase that my grandparents had lent us and a multi-pack of Skips. And we raced home to watch Stars. And then as well, another sort of early memory was my granddad taking us to Madame Tussauds to see the Michael waxwork. And he used to be on the staircase with a kind of ribbon in front of it, so you couldn't go. And my granddad got one of the staff and said, like, can my grandsons go and stand next to it? And they said, no, like, people aren't allowed. And he was like, we've only come here for Michael Jackson. That's all they want to see. So the guy was like, all right, if you're quick. So I've got a photo of my brother and I, sort of, we went under the barrier and we're literally on the stairs next to him. And then just kind of, you know, from there, Michael was just forever present in my life until pretty much today.
Actually, we all have a similar thing where our family member is already a fan.
I remember the first time I ever saw the Thriller video, and I was in my grandma's house, and I can't remember how old I was, maybe about 7 or 8. And I was at her house, and I was just kind of flicking through the music channels. That's what I used to do when I was younger. And she was like, keep that on, I've not seen this in years. Keep it on. And it was, the first thing I remember seeing was, you know, that part in the long version of Thriller when the zombie comes out of the drain on the floor. I was horrified. I was like, what is that? But yeah, I remember that was the first time I ever saw Thriller.
I remember for me with Thriller that my mum has a friend called Wendy who lived in Chingford, and she had
Wendy from Chingford. She's
I was gonna say.
Well, it's funny because my mum's literally just reconnected with her like last week after about 20 years. So Wendy from Chingford had the making of Thriller on VHS, because VHSs were expensive. I mean, I know you guys have grown up in a digital and DVD age, but VHSs were not cheap. And Wendy had making a Thriller on VHS. So every time we'd go to Wendy's, we'd be like, oh, can we watch the Michael Jackson video? And she would put it on. And I used to hate the laugh at the end. I used to hide behind her sofa because I hated the laugh. In the same way with the cassette, right? So when I was growing up, I used to play Thriller cassette, and I never had heard the intro, the full intro to Beat It, until I got the CD, because where I would stop the tape before the laugh and flip it over to the other side, it cut off the first part of Beat It, like the dongs.
Oh.
So when I got it on CD for the first time, and I was like, what are these dongs at the beginning? But I'd always miss them because I never wanted to hear Vincent Price's laugh at the end because it scared me.
You're like, what's this new song?
I am so happy that I'm not the only one scarred for life from Thriller, because I was actually we were talking about it at work last night. They were all saying like, oh, this classic movie scared me. And I was like, mine's a music video. and I was showing them. Zombies part didn't scare me at all. It was the bit where he's turning into Werecat, and there's like 3 stages of it. So he just has like teeth and yellow eyes. That was fine. The second stage, that scared the life out of me. I would literally wake up crying from nightmares. No joke.
I think, you know, kind of growing up with Michael and then finding the community really sort of it has changed my life. I can't say it hasn't, because I wouldn't be sat here if it hadn't. My sort of first entry to the fan community, I joined, there was a fan site called MJ Paradise. And I think it was probably around 2001. They had a message board and people used to go on and leave messages. And I met a friend of mine, Can, from Turkey, who I still talk to today. So this has been like since about 2001. And there was another guy called Mark, who I used to talk to on there. And then I found fan forums like MJNI and MJNO. And I went to my first fan event in 2003, which was Music and Me. And Michael was meant to go, but he had to surrender his passport, so he wasn't able to be there. And that was kind of like, that was a huge eye-opener for me, because I'd never been to another fan event. I hadn't been old enough. So I was about 16 at this point. And I just remember going into this club in London for this event. And I think I mentioned it before in the convention episode. There was a whole wall of like Michael dolls. And I just saw all these people. And I remember Tabloid Junkie coming on. And I was like, I'm home. I found my people. And it just felt amazing to be in a room, especially at this time, because Michael had just gone through the new set of accusations in 2003. So to be around people for the first time as fans, and I was like, I just want photos with everybody. And I literally went around with this little disposable camera, like, can I have a photo with you?
My first ever introduction to a sort of Michael Jackson fan base was actually on a website called Stardoll. Now,
Called what?
Stardoll. Now, this was like a children's online dress-up game, but they had forums on it. And in 2009, they had a Michael Jackson fan forum, and it was literally like full of people who were my age at the time, like 11, 12, 13-year-olds, and it was just forums, and they were just talking about Michael, and there was a few fans on there. And then through the years, it was actually kind of lonely, because I really didn't know anyone apart from like my mum, my sister, family members who loved Michael. Then I decided to make a Michael Jackson fan account on Instagram. We've all been there. And I had like mutual followers, and someone who turned out to be Chloe, who I became great friends with, posted about a Michael Jackson event in London, and it was happening that September. And I messaged her and I was like, oh, can I have more details about this? That event turned out to be Kingvention, which was my first time ever meeting fans. It was in 2015. I think I had just turned 17 the week before. So I remember walking up to the hotel in London. I had came with my mum and my sister, and I really didn't know what to expect, because I had never met someone who was a fan like I was a fan. And the first thing I heard was, "They don't care about us" on the drums. And it was "They don't care about us" was like the intro from the music video. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, these people know what they're doing. I came down the stairs, and it was so many fans there. And I immediately, just as you said, I felt like I was at home. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I just could not believe people felt the way I felt about Michael. It was the most amazing feeling. And I finally felt like I was, probably for the first time, because I was still in high school at the time, and anyone who was a Michael fan in high school knows what I'm talking about. I felt so like immediately friends with everyone, completely non-judgmental environment. Everyone was there for the same reason. You could feel the love in the room. I will never ever forget that, but it was just the most amazing experience.
Ilya, what about your first Inception? Who did you start a fight with?
We'll get to that part, okay. There was no kind of like internet or communication back then. I lived in a third world country back then. Once I found writing on the wall saying, it was a fence, and it said Michael Jackson, and I was like, oh my god, there's another fan in this country. Like what the hell? So I was like 8 or 9. I literally wrote my number underneath. I said, I'm an MJ fan, please contact. And they actually did, funnily enough. So it was this girl called Tina. Shout out to Tina. She's probably not watching or probably doesn't understand this, but that
Or
was
she's
my
blocked you.
oh, she's not. But yeah, that was it. And then we met more friends, and there was like 4 of us, and it was incredible. So she had some, like a box with the cutouts from like Michael from American Music Awards performance, and I was blown away.
But I think, finding the community, I think all of us can attest to the fact that growing up as a fan can be a really lonely experience until you find other fans. I know, like for me, I was in school during the 2003 to 2005 trial, and it was I had a horrible time with that. People were really, really mean, and it was tough. When you don't know any other fans or you've just met people online, that to kind of be able to go out and actively find other fans is like, yes, like you feel, I think when you go into a room and you meet other fans, you don't have to explain yourself because that's already understood by the time you get there. Because I'm sure you guys have had it as well, like when you were growing up and you were listening to Michael, that people would say to you, oh, when are you going to grow out of this phase? At 35, I'm still in the phase. I mean, I'm guessing it's not a phase anymore.
During school, I really felt like there was so many times where everyone would make fun of me. Get through school, constant jokes. But I honestly can say that by that point, I really didn't care. Towards the end of high school, I was like over it. Went to convention, told everyone. And then by the time I came back from convention, people were like, you know what, Charlotte, like, that's actually really cool that you went to London, you did this thing, you met people. And I was like, yeah, it is cool.
So like any community, we have our ups and we have our downs. And I think what I find most interesting is because the Michael community is so broad and so vast that we kind of have this love-hate relationship with each other all the time. We do come together when it matters, and then we can fall out spectacularly in a fashion like no other. So with that said, I think where a lot of the disagreements come between fans can often be over a certain belief system as to how you should be a fan or the way in which you should conduct yourself as a fan. So I'm interested to know your thoughts on if you think there is a kind of unwritten code of conduct that we as MJ fans should follow, or some sort of rule book by which, we must do X, Y, Z. I know that the public probably think we all walk around singing hee hee and, wearing gloves, one glove at home and a fedora. But do you think there's kind of an unwritten code of conduct that we all just kind of know about, or what do you think the kind of underlining of it all is?
I mean, the first rule is that every fan, if you call yourself a fan, you should know how to spell Billie Jean. It's not spelled with Y. That's out the way. I don't think I've been told a lot this week how I should be a Michael Jackson fan. And I really disagree with all of them because, as I said in my tweet, I'm just here for Michael. I'm not here for anybody else, literally. And some fans feel like I should be a fan of everybody else that's related to Michael, or been in the room with Michael, or has defended him. There's millions of people that defend Michael. Actually, anyone that has a brain defends Michael. So no, I don't think there's any rules.
No, I don't think that there is certain rules you need to abide by. But what does annoy me is people acting as if there's this concept of a fake fan. Anyone who is a Michael fan and calls himself a Michael fan, you're welcome in my book. It's not as if I'm letting people in, but the two things that really, really get to me with fake fan is people really have this issue with before death and after death. If you're a fan after death, then you're not. What is that all about? Like, I honestly hate that, and they're going to have a tough time on their hands. Not to promo, but our last episode was about the biopic. after this biopic, because I'm telling you now, there's going to be a whole load of new fans after the biopic.
Yeah.
Whether some doesn't matter to me when someone became a fan. I don't care if you're a fan yesterday. I don't care if you're a fan 40, 50 years ago. A fan is a fan to me. Also, another thing that annoys me is the way that, and this is absolutely nothing against people who buy everything Michael related, have lots of merch. I have lots of Michael merch. That is completely personal choice. Yep. And you're entitled to that. But it's people when they act as if, oh, you don't have this, they make it about owning things. I hate when people do that. There are many, many, many reasons why people don't buy things or don't. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, you shouldn't go out and buy things. But when people make being a Michael fan about ownership, to me, that's completely irrelevant.
You've made so many points that I really want to jump on. So just while I remember the ownership one, I don't think that, owning loads of merchandise makes you any more of a fan than somebody who owns one CD or a cassette tape or something burnt off the internet. However, I do also think that there has been, especially since the estate came along, this idea of what you can and can't buy. And I know for me, like, I've bought things, and when I've said online, oh, I've bought this, people are like, why are you buying that? You shouldn't be buying that. Don't you know that blah, 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 and yes, you shouldn't be putting money in the estate's pocket and all this sort of stuff. And so I think I agree with you that buying merchandise shouldn't be considered the extent of a fandom, but equally, you shouldn't be attacked if you choose to. I think so that kind of works on both levels. I think, the fake fan thing, I said it on Twitter this week, and somebody said to me, oh, hit a nerve, have I? I was like, oh, whatever. But it really rubs me up the wrong way because it's such a stupid thing. Like, let's get down to it. What is a fake fan? Somebody who says, I like Michael Jackson, but doesn't really. That just seems like, so a person listens to the music, buys the music, watches it on YouTube, wears his t-shirt out, has friends that are fans, uses his picture as their profile picture, but they don't really like him.
Somebody said it's almost like you don't care about the Jackson 5 and the Jacksons, and I was like, bad news. But I genuinely, that actually scared me to say on Twitter that I actually don't care about that. I mean, I like I Want You Back, and I like Can You Feel It. I will listen to some stuff because it's Michael, and it's mostly Michael, but it's still not the Michael that I fell in love with. We're talking about the Michael from the 70s. Michael from the 95 was a different vibe, okay? And that's the Michael I discovered. So I can say in person, I feel like, but I would not dare saying that on Twitter because they would bury me alive. I feel like, fake fan, how dare you?
Where do you think that comes from, though? This kind of idea that, unless we are all in agreement about the way we feel about Michael and the albums we like, and jokes and debate is fine. Like, oh no, Dangerous is the best album, which, we all know it is. But if people want to disagree and say Thriller, then that's their prerogative to be wrong. But where do you think that comes from? This kind of weird, because people say, you shouldn't say that. And I'm like, okay, but then what should I be saying? And when did we sign up to an agreement that we all have to think and feel the same? Because, like, even for us three, we're all from different countries. Charlotte's from Scotland, I'm from England, and Aaliyah's originally from Georgia. And we have all gravitated to Michael for our own reasons. We've all got friends that are fans around the world, like in all different countries. And every single person gravitated to Michael for a different reason. So why suddenly, now that we are all together, do we have to subscribe to a collective sense of thought? I don't know. It really baffles me.
It's funny because I feel like no other artist is actually held to the same standard. Like, if you're a Beyonce fan, do you have to like everything in Destiny's Child? I don't understand the notion that we all have to have the same thought process. It reminds me of fans who say they like every single Michael song, they like every single video. They like, it's okay to not like things. It doesn't mean you love them any less. And also, just on the notion of fake fan while we're still on it, there was a point in time where people were actually frightened to admit they even were fans. So for someone to be brave enough to say they're a fan and not mean it, there was certain points in time where we'd take anyway.
But I don't understand what someone would get out of pretending to be a fan. I mean, you know, as I said, we've got some great people, but when stuff gets hot, as we've seen this week, it can be a very hostile place. So I'm like, why would someone want to fake this? It's hardly warm and welcoming 24/7. I just find it really weird. I find it so weird that someone be like, you're a fake fan. It's like, well, what does a real one look like? Which leads me nicely onto my next point. Do you think that as fans, whilst we've established that we don't accept that there's a rule book or a kind of code of conduct, do you think we have to subscribe to the same ideas as Michael, or the same morals as Michael, or the same likes and approach to situations as Michael?
Absolutely not. And there's so many things I disagree with that he has said, or not gonna go into it because I'm gonna get called I don't know, everything else that I haven't been called.
Oh, as if you care.
I mean, yeah, but
when it comes to Michael's morals and beliefs, I think we're very different. But I don't feel any pressure to. It's the same way with anyone in my life. Like, I don't feel a pressure to have the same morals and opinions as you guys or my other friends or anyone that I'm around. I don't care really until a point how other people really feel about certain things. It doesn't make me love them any less. It doesn't make me not want to be around them. And you don't have to have the exact same ideologies as someone to appreciate them as a human being. It's so bizarre.
no, but that would be so boring. If we all like the same thing and if we all agreed, like what's there to discuss? What this channel wouldn't even exist.
It'd be the big MJ agreement.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for joining us. We all agree on everything. Goodbye. No, I agree as well. And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the way in which we all gravitated to Michael for different reasons. I don't subscribe to all the same channels that Michael does. You know, Michael said, I see God in the face of children. I certainly do not. But there are many things that Michael had viewpoints on that I don't subscribe to the same viewpoints, and I think that's okay. I don't think, I like the way he approached certain aspects in life. I like the way that he, embraced the idea of being childlike. Who the hell doesn't want a theme park in their garden, for God's sake? If I could have giraffes wandering around in the back garden, I really would. I mean, you've been to my house. My garden's not that big, but room for a small giraffe, we'll take it.
A certain song of Michael's that I don't even want to mention, I completely disagree with. Now, we don't have to like and agree on every single aspect of life. Like, Michael's a very religious person. I'm not religious at all.
Sorry, I want to know the song. What is it?
Abortion Papers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't like that.
Say it loud. Say it loud.
I don't even like to talk about that song because I'm like, you've let me down here, Michael. But like that. I mean, I think I've listened to that song once, never listened to it again.
But no, I think you're right about Abortion Papers, and I tell you for why. Because I think, we were talking about code of conduct and that one doesn't exist, but maybe the code of conduct is understanding and acceptance of different points of view and not letting that get in the way of admiring somebody's abilities or admiring a person. So I am completely in agreement with you. I don't agree with the context of Abortion Papers, but I admire Michael for putting his stand out there and saying, this is how I feel about it. And as an artist and as somebody who feels this way, I'm going to put it in a song. That doesn't mean that I can't like him anymore. And that doesn't mean that we are like, I should follow exactly what he says, because if I don't, I'm not a fan. It just means that we differ on that point of view.
Also, I think it's the thing with Michael is, I mean, Michael's been dead for nearly 15 years. There are a lot of opinions that he said even in the 80s and 90s that are very, very outdated now. And that is actually only going to get worse as time goes on. He will say completely outdated things over and over again. So it's very easy to look back at things with 2023 eyes and be like, oh, that was weird or that was wrong, but at the time it was a lot more popular viewpoints, and that's not just about abortion papers, that's about a lot of things that he said. But no, it doesn't make me think I have to think that. I think that's a very childish viewpoint, that if he thinks it, I think it, and if he does it, then I do it.
We've seen a lot, especially this week, where there's been some disagreements, that this idea of you're not a fan, Michael would be ashamed of you for this, and Michael wouldn't like that. I really kind of hate that vibe, because firstly, nobody has a right to put words into Michael's mouth about how Michael might feel about a situation. That includes John Branca, when his TikToks are shared on the official Michael Jackson account. Nobody has the right to put words in Michael Jackson's own mouth. Sorry, Charlotte, I see you. What do you want to...
No, I'm just going, yeah.
No, she's doing the what's his name? LaVille.
No, but you know what? See, now that you say that, Prince was asked about the Free Britney movement on, I think it was Good Morning Britain. And they said, what do you reckon Michael would make of that? And he said, I never want to put words in my father's mouth. So everyone giving it, Michael would like this and Michael wouldn't like that.
This is going to be very rare coming from me, but I have so much respect from Prince. From those interviews, that is literally where it comes from.
Prince is, for speaking personally, is everything I could have hoped for Michael's son handling the media. The way he conducts himself in every interview is so eloquent. He speaks perfectly. He answers the questions in exactly the right manner. He doesn't stutter. He really approaches that in the right way. And you're absolutely right when he said, I don't want to put words in my father's mouth. And so I think for his own son, who Michael raised with a set of values and a set of opinions, to not do that, nobody else should be doing that either. And I really don't like it when somebody says, Michael wouldn't like it if you did this, because we don't know what Michael would or wouldn't like. As you mentioned, Shah, he's been gone for, nearly 15 years. But equally, I've always said this, and I know this is kind of a loose point, but I honestly believe if Thriller era Michael had met Thriller 25 era Michael and heard those remixes, he'd be like, what the hell are you doing to my album? That's my opinion.
I think though sometimes, obviously, and I'm in no way saying, oh, there's certain people who should be figureheads, but certain people who maybe tend to speak out a bit more of their opinions, like a lot of the time, for example, you, Pez, something will go on and people will tag you for comment. And it's as if, like, I don't know, I think sometimes in the fan community, it does seem like if a certain person has an opinion, a lot of fans will just follow that opinion because it seems like a safe option. Nobody, I think, should be frightened or scared to lose friends for having an opinion. That's why we started a debate channel.
Completely. I think, what's the saying? Opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one. Some people are an arsehole. One of the areas that I remember from previous years is that sometimes it's the way in which people approach a situation to respond to you. I recall when there was arguments about Michael's will, and people would say it's a fake will, but it's the way they would go about it. If you don't realize this, then who the hell do you think you are? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you do realize if you come and scream in my face, I'm not going to want to hear what you have to say. Whereas if you say to me, listen, I don't know if you're aware of this. Have you considered this? Have you viewed this point of view? Have you understood it from this angle? Maybe you haven't read this. Here, look, here's a link. People are more susceptible to going, oh yeah, actually, I will look into that. But when you just berate somebody, they're not willing to, that gives their back up, your back up, and nobody backs down. The answer to this question may have changed, particularly this week, but individually, where do you see your personal place within the fan community? Like, if there was a denomination, where do you think you fit?
Can somebody else go first? Because I don't know.
Not me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's a really, really difficult question. I don't think I would place myself anywhere. I mean, I go to fan events. I do this with you guys. I enjoy Michael privately. I enjoy Michael publicly. I don't think I have a place in the fan community. I just think I am a fan. I would hope that anyone would think that. I mean, there was, and I mean, I know it started as a joke, but there was discussions all through the week about leaders and all of this, and to me, that's just silly. Like, of course, there are people who have contributed majorly to this fan community, and I completely love and support that. But I personally don't see myself as above nor below any other fan.
I think that was a very well-rounded answer, and I completely agree with you. I think, you know, from my perspective, I kind of see it as, like you, I don't sort of see myself having a particular place. I know there are things that I don't personally subscribe to, like I don't see Michael as a god or a godlike figure or anything like that. I don't subscribe to the whole cult mentality or the death hoax crowd. That's just not me. And I don't subscribe to you must be anti everything or pro everything. As I said previously, I sort of, you know, flow between the two depending on what it is. But equally, I think where I see myself in the fan community is alongside those that enjoy doing things in Michael's name, like you say, wearing it from simply wearing a t-shirt in the street to running an event or writing a book or having a website or doing a blog or making a video or doing a podcast or all of these creative things that fans do. And I think sometimes fans in general get forgotten in a wider discussion of contribution to the community, because when the estate aren't dropping Thriller 40, it's March, and Taj is off making his documentary and the biopic is happening in the background, the fans are the ones that keep things going. They keep Michael's name out there. They get him trending on Twitter all the time. They get his music in the charts. They get, you know, the 1 billion for They Don't Care About Us campaign that's going on. That Billie Jean to 1 billion, that was done by fans. That was a fan project that fans pioneered. And I think, you know, we've got so many creative and talented people that keep things consistent throughout the year, so that when we have these pop-ups of like a state project or Sony project or whatever, the fans are kind of consistent throughout. And so I see myself as a fan who likes to do things. And I think there is a lot of us out there.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you. I think we don't have no rules. And yeah, there's a lot of great, and you guys, I'm so happy to have you as my friends. There's a lot of great, and unfortunately Michael has attracted a lot of weird also, and past 3 days I didn't help that case either, but past 3 days proved that. And yeah, I love it when we come together, and I love when we all agree to something at least one day, you know. And when we're celebrating Michael, that's what I love the most. Okay, and that's what I'm here for. And I don't know where that puts me, because I don't like the Jacksons and the Jackson 5 and 3T.
Listen, you need an education on the Triumph album, and I'm going to give it to you. So
perfect.
To all our viewers,
I'm open for it.
To all our viewers who are watching this in despair, Ilya's Triumph education will be coming. Do not worry.
Okay, fine. I'm open to it.
Final question. How has being a fan of Michael impacted your life, whether that be positive or negative, or, you know, changed it completely? How would you say that being a fan of him has impacted you?
It changed my life completely. I have best friends in you guys that I couldn't imagine life without. I couldn't imagine my life without Michael in it. I think Michael has taught me so many lessons about people, about how to treat people, how to approach things. His music especially, and just listening to him or putting him on has got me through some of the hardest times in my life. And I would not change my experience as a fan, positive or negative experiences that I've had, for anything. I hate to say this, but I really do owe so much to him. I really do owe so much to Michael and everything that he's done for my life. And thinking about where I would be if I wasn't a fan, it's impossible. It really is impossible.
It's been like a roller coaster. I mean, I was on TV because of Michael, like in front of million people, and that recording of that video still has millions of views, and it's mind-blowing. So I mean, that's that. And then he taught me
And
so
you can find the link in the description for George's
no,
Got Talent
fuck off,
video.
no. But no, he's taught me so much, and I'm a dancer, and I do what I do because of him, like millions and millions of people as well. So the impact he has huge impact on my life, and I'm always and forever grateful. And I have you guys because of him. So yeah, I can't complain.
I agree. I don't know where I would be without my fan friends. I'm married because of Michael. So without him, wouldn't be married, wouldn't do Kingvention, wouldn't have written a book. But Michael has completely changed my life. You know, I owe my surname to him. As I say, I owe my marriage to him. And he's brought me the best of the best. Equally, he's brought me the worst of the worst. I've had the happiest times from being a fan, from seeing him and from hanging out with you guys and those little precious memories. And I've had the worst times of being a fan as well. I've had some of the greatest friends, and I've lost some of the greatest friendships, which in hindsight is a good thing. And I just think it's been a real roller coaster that is a huge part. I don't say that being a fan is my life, but it's a huge part of my life. It's not my identity, but it's a big part of who I am, if that makes sense.
Oh, I think if it was, I would genuinely say I would have an identity crisis if it was, if it wasn't for being a fan. And another thing that, you know, there is so many people I have met. Some people I've never seen again. Some people I talk to daily I have met because of Michael. There's so many places I've gone because of Michael. That he's given me so many experiences, so many things that have happened in my life, so many places I've gone and people I've met simply because of being a fan. And I struggle to imagine what life would be like if that never happened for me. And I'm so glad it did. Please be sure to leave us a comment, tell us what you think about what makes you a fan, and share with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Oh, I think they'll leave a comment for me.
You are loving this drama.
We don't subscribe to your drama. We don't know her.
Fine.